Hey, what's up, Patriots? Today we're going to be doing a quick reaction video to a lunatic who United States Enclave Libertas was kind enough to present me with. Now, real quick before this video begins, I need you all to head over here to United States Enclave, link in the description, and subscribe to this guy. He does absolutely amazing work, and I cannot sing his praises enough. Libertas is doing some absolutely awesome stuff. He's got very regular uploads. He's doing way better with content than I ever could hope to be, and he's only a few subscribers away from that big, huge 400 milestone. So if you guys could give him any support at all, that would be hugely appreciated. I'd love to see this guy's channel grow. But without further ado, let's go and take a look at the video that he showed on his channel. In this video, Leftist Psychopath explains why they think gun control is good. And he linked this video to me, so now we are going to watch it. Also, we're going to critique it because I know a lot about guns. I probably know more about guns than most people my age, other than competitive shooters and children of gun manufacturers. And I don't say that to brag. I say that as, yeah, I know a lot about guns. So off the bat, let's analyze this picture. So she's obviously walking, but this is a terrible shooting stance, but that can be forgiven because she's walking. Second of all, no eye pro, no ear pro, so she's not wearing any kind of protection whatsoever. And in case you're wearing contacts, lady, those don't count. As for the gun itself, I have no idea what this is. I was ready to say that it's a 1022 or an early model, but the thing is that the guard here, or the barrel here, completely negates that, because a 1022 has a very distinctive rectangular top, which at first glance might throw you because that looks like it from far away, but once you get close up, it's just a normal barrel, and it looks like a lever action, but I think that might just be an extended trigger guard, so I'm going to be hesitant to say with that. It's always difficult to determine what these guns, what these old wood stock guns are, because, you know, there's just so many of those things floating around out there. They're old, nobody really remembers them, and you just find them in pawn shops, and they tell you what caliber it takes and how to load them, and then there's just so many different models of them floating around out there that you can't really tell what these things are anymore. So I have no idea what this kind of gun is. Based on the barrel in comparison to her hands, I think that this is some kind of 4570, possibly a 30-06, but it's a rifle cartridge. It is a rifle cartridge firing gun. It's not an intermediate or pistol firing cartridge. But anyways, on with the video.
Hey there, Shalligators. This is a different kind of video. Normally, I mean, I weave politics into the stuff that we talk about, and, you know...
I'm going to try and skip over some of the stuff in the video because it is 21 minutes long, and I'm only concerned with a few parts.
Because politics, it's my opinion, because God forbid I ever keep my opinion to myself.
Okay, so I'm guilty of that as well, but, lady, first of all, I'm going to say right here and now that if you disagree with anything I am about to say, I more than happily invite you onto my channel to discuss it, in the rare event that you find this video and you see it. I would love to have you on the channel to debate this. I'm going to try and refrain from some of the insults that Libertas threw your way. No disrespect to Libertas, I love him, and they were warranted based on some of the things you say here, but I'm more concerned with critiquing you in the terms of a two-way person and a person who knows a lot about firearms, firearms history, and firearms regulations. So if you have any problem with what I say in this video, you are more than welcome to come on my channel. I will just comment on one of my videos, name a time and name a method of communication, and I will be there. And then we can put it on your channel, we can put it on my channel, we can put it on both. We can not post it at all. I'm more than happy to debate you on this. But anyways, by the way, guys, her channel name is called Shallon Lester, which I believe is her name. Don't go giving her hate mail. Don't go bomb the comment section. But again, Shallon Lester, I more than happily invite you onto my channel.
About being a gun owner who's...
So I'm going to analyze this picture right here too. It looks like this is from the same excursion as we saw in the other picture. Again, no eye pro, no ear pro, and the stance can be excused because she's walking around, looks like. However, what I can't excuse is the horrible, horrible idea of carrying two guns like this. Either carry them in separate hands or carry them one at a time. You do not carry firearms like this. It is a safety hazard, even if both guns are not loaded. There's a saying, always treat guns as if they are loaded. But anyways, on with the video.
Who's also very, very in favor of extremely strict gun control. How do those two things reconcile?
Please explain.
How can you be both? Well, I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to tell you why those two things are not actually contrary beliefs at all, because I am a Democrat, ride or die Democrat, will vote yellow dog Democrat until I die, but I
Bad look already?
love guns. Before we get started,
Okay, so I'm already going to point out the contradiction here. You are a ride or die Democrat who will vote Democrat in any circumstance. However, you also admit to loving guns. Nevertheless, your party is the one that just nominated David Shipman to be the director of the ATF, one of the most outspoken people against guns in the entire United States, and was also partially responsible for the Waco disaster, which can only be called a disaster because to call it anything less would be to diminish the sacrifices of the ATF and FBI agents who died at that site, as well as some of the kids that David Shipman took pictures next to who literally burned to death. Nevertheless, you say you're a ride or die Democrat. The Democrats made it exclusively and abundantly clear that they hate guns and would love to ban them across the United States. There is no room on the Democrat Party for any person who loves guns. And this is something that I'm going to talk about in a later video. But if you guys think that guns are good, if you guys think that there is a place for guns in this society, you cannot vote Democrat. You cannot call yourself a Democrat. Even if you align with Democrats on every other issue, you have to vote red because they are the only people, the conservatives are the only people who are willing to defend the Second Amendment in any capacity. Because the Democrats, as history has shown, will take any excuse and any opportunity to go after the Second Amendment in any capacity. So, you're already contradicting yourself massively. I hope you have a good excuse for it.
I want to remind you guys to follow me on Instagram at ShallonXO. Also, if you want some hookup tips, we've got some new videos up on Flays about...
So, she gives some information here. I'm not interested in it. So, let's get to her backstory.
But you're going to stay for the life lessons and level up. But today...
So, the short and sweet of this is that she is from New York. She lived there for the past 10 years. She recently moved to Montana because of security threats that she had in New York. And when she moved to Montana, she bought guns, which was her first time buying guns, which sort of explains some of the safety errors she was making in the earlier photos. I'm assuming those are recent photos, so this would somewhat excuse them, but this is also the necessity of training and firearm safety. Because if you don't know what you're doing and you get your hands on guns, you're going to end up looking like her in those earlier photos, which is extremely unsafe in the second case.
We're going to talk guns. So if you're... One of the reasons I did move is because I had very specific security threats against my life. And
she's going to specify them right here, and I'm just going to point out that this is not uncommon in New York.
It's been going on for a while now, given what I do as a YouTuber. Also, I dated...
She gives people tips on how to cheat on people. Libertas has some other videos up on his channel about Shallon Lester. I'm not going to dive into that because I'm only concerned with the 2A implications of this video.
I dated someone who cheated on me with a girl who ended up stalking me, and she would do dry runs to my apartment in New York, practicing to come and kill me. And I remember at the time, I was so furious that I didn't have any weapons.
Yeah, that's what happens in Democrat cities, guys. If you live in a Democrat area, you are not allowed to have a gun. Or if you are, it is insanely hard to get a concealed carry permit or to get the permits needed to have the kinds of weapons in your home that it would take to defend yourself from a crazy psycho who wanted to kill you. Also, there's a higher percentage of crazy psychos in these areas who do carry out these crimes because they know they can. This is statistically proven over the past year in New York. California, Chicago, Minneapolis, Portland, basically any lib city, you name it, this is statistically true.
She was coming from DC, and which is basically Virginia. You can get a gun in Virginia. You can't have.
It is actually pretty easy to get a gun in Virginia. However, there is an ongoing 2A fight in Virginia between the overwhelmingly leftist legislature and the overwhelmingly 2A, pro 2A population. So, as of right now, it is somewhat simplified to get a gun in Virginia. However, that may change in the near future.
Have a gun in New York City. If you get caught with a gun in New York City, it is automatic 1 year in jail. No trial, no nothing, no negotiation, automatic penalty. So
this is a huge, huge pile of misinformation. I looked up what the I looked up the information that she's trying to cite here, and while she is citing the correct penalty, there is nothing in the New York Penal Code or Federal Penal Code that would indicate that you would not receive a trial, at least for a misdemeanor, in this case. So you would get a trial, okay? That is granted to you by the Constitution. You cannot just simply arrest somebody and throw them in jail for a year without a trial. That's not how it works in the United States. I know that's how the Democrats would like to make it work, but that's not how our justice system works. And that's also going to be part of another video I might do in the future, which is that the people who have been arrested from the January 6th riot in quotes, have been arrested without charges, most of them without charges, and they have been held in prison for about 6 months now without charges. This is highly illegal, and this is a situation we need to get on top of because these people are basically political prisoners. However, as it pertains to this video, this is a high amount of misinformation. You would still be granted a trial under New York Penal Code, at least from what I've been able to find through my searches. However, she is citing the correct penalty. It would be 1 to 4 years in prison and a fine of up to $5,000. The maximum penalties for a misdemeanor are 1 year in jail and a fine of $1,000. So that's if they chose to prosecute it as a misdemeanor, which from what I can see of New York statistics, it will really just depend on your political record and your race, unfortunately. That's what I can see. Black people and Hispanic people usually are charged as misdemeanors, but if any white person does this or any Asian person does this, it's usually carried out as a felony charge. But again, that's from what I've found. Tell me if you found something different.
So it's not something people risk. You just can't have guns in a population that dense, right?
You can, you just need to train people and to educate people, which is why I will always advocate for firearms training in schools so that people get that knowledge of what is a gun, how does a gun operate, what types of guns are there, what's the safety drills with guns, what do you do when there's an active shooter, okay? How do you take apart guns? How do you disassemble guns? How do you unload guns? How do you load guns? How do you operate around guns and with guns? And then you teach these kids the laws surrounding guns, and then you will have far less problems. Far less problems. We used to do this in the United States, and gun crime back then, even adjusted for population density, it shows that the crime rate, violent crime rate with guns was much lower when we educated people. So ultimately, it comes down to a matter of education.
Which is ironic because it's like, everyone's annoying me. I need a gun to get people away from me. Like, you can understand it.
This is what Libertas went after. I won't so much go after this, but lady, if you're needing a gun to get people away from you, I would recommend private security. That's a good enough indication of, please stay away from me, without you needing to carry a firearm. Nevertheless, that's probably the wrong motivation to have a gun. I can see why in New York you probably want one for that reason. There's some crazy people in New York. Nevertheless, I would advise you to go through other routes of deterring annoying people aside from waving a gun around.
but you cannot do that. And so, of course, I get it. But I was so angry that like I didn't have the power to defend myself against some.
So you take your idiotic ideas to a red state that made you angry in the first place.
Someone who had access to something that was so deadly. And I was like, I want to live someplace where I can.
That's what happens in Democrat areas. The bad guys get the guns because the good guys are not allowed to have them, and they're ridiculously hard to get, and even more ridiculously hard to carry outside of your house. This is what people need to understand about the Democrats.
Defend myself.
You can't defend yourself in these areas. They don't want you to defend yourself. They want the criminals to have the upper hand, because then that instills a sense of fear, and they can drive off of that fear. They can play off of that fear. They can say they're going to make it better. They can say all these X and X nice things about getting guns off the street. But the thing is, we've entered an age where, I'm sorry, it is simply impossible to stop criminals from getting guns. Illegally, legally, it doesn't matter. They will get guns somehow. The best way, the only way to defend people from that is to make it easy for law-abiding citizens like her to get a firearm to defend themselves. Okay? That's simply the best way to do things. Now, if Democrats really, really actually wanted to implement effective gun control, there's a very simple way to do it, and it's ammo tax. If you tax the hell out of ammunition, nobody is going to go around shooting it because it's like shooting gold. If 22 LR was $3 a round, I guarantee you no gun crime, because that's way too expensive, especially for criminals who almost always come from lower classes or lower parts of society, people who don't have much income and are forced to go into crime to survive. If you made ammo that expensive, you would almost eliminate gun crime, at least in theory. But the thing is, that's the one thing that Democrats have never tried. Okay? It's a really simple fix, but nobody's ever tried it. So there's two ends of the spectrum here. You can either implement the ammo tax, which is unconstitutional already, and we can get to that in a separate video, or you can make it easy to arm people. So let's see how she tries to ride the middle.
That wasn't the whole reason I moved, but it was a factor. I wanted less people per square mile. That's how I like it, baby. We're like the third lowest density. And so, yeah, I got there, and the first thing, my first gun that I bought was a shotgun. I have a 20 gauge Mossberg. I love her. She's my
20 gauge Mossberg. And then this looks like a Glock 19. You can tell because it's a little bit larger. A 17 would be a little bit more compact. And then this time she does have eye pro and ear pro holster. So it looks like this time she did get training. So I applaud her for that.
My baby, Dark Betty, I call her. She's hanging in my...
No eye pro or ear pro this time. Oh, but this is a crossbow. Okay, that's probably okay.
My dining room, you guys.
And then this looks like a Ruger 5.56, although maybe not because because of the stock right here. This isn't typical of a Ruger 5.56, but the rest of the body looks like a Ruger 5.56 AR.
You've probably seen her in the background of some videos. She's just one of many. I have a handgun in my car, in the console of my car.
Again, okay, she's carrying them in different hands this time. That is still not the recommended way to do it, but at least this is acceptable.
Almost everybody does in Montana. I have one in my kitchen. I have one in my bedroom. I am pretty well armed. I wish I had some of my guns to flash here, but I'm out in California, and we don't bring them out here. You can't even drive them out here.
That's right, you can't. It's a crime.
Against the law. I'm a very obedient girl, so they're staying.
So she admits to being a law-abiding gun owner, which furthers my point that in cities like New York, it punishes law-abiding gun owners while rewarding criminals like the person who stalked her.
In Montana. Oh, but I miss them. I have them. I've never shot at a person.
Thank God.
I've never shot at an animal, and I will.
I'm less tempted to say thank God, but if you're not chill on taking lives, even if it's an animal's life, then go you. Okay? Guns aren't for going out and killing everything. Okay? They can be used for that, but they're also for recreation and civil defense. Merely having a gun makes the government more afraid of the population, okay? Because a government that fears the people is a government that will do what the people want. A government that does not fear the people is a government that is much more likely to not do what the people want.
Never shoot at an animal, any kind of animal, no matter what. If some wolf, bear, bison,
don't try and take a shot at a bear, you're just going to make it mad. Unless you have like a 50 BMG, don't take a shot at a bear.
Hybrid is charging me, I will happily accept death. I cannot kill an animal. I can't. I'll kill a person if they threaten my life or my family's life.
You see, now that's where I have a problem. If you're willing to kill a person and not an animal, that already shows a disorganization of where your priorities are at. Nevertheless, I do respect that if a person is coming at you, you are willing to drop them in order to save yourself or those you care about.
Absolutely. Don't start it. You know, I always say, I don't start a fight, but I'll finish one.
So it seems like she's very much in line with the 2A community here. So my question is, why do you support gun control?
I shoot targets. I shoot clay pigeons, not like, they're like just clay discs. They're called clay pigeons if you don't know. Targets, paper targets, just nothing. It's just for fun. I first started shooting guns in ROTC. I was in Army ROTC. It's kind of like junior Army training. In college, that was the first weapon I ever learned on was an M16. I can assemble and disassemble one blindfolded in 30 seconds.
I very much doubt that they had you learn on an M16 in college, especially if you're in an ROTC program, although there are some schools that still use M16s because they haven't upgraded and they've gotten permission from the government to keep M16s. Nevertheless, they are very rural schools and very remote. So I would very much assume that you did not train on an M16, you trained on an AR-15. And the difference between those two is that the M16 has a third switch, or has a third position for the selector switch, which is either burst or full auto. It depends on the model of the M16. Now, an AR does not have that third position. It can be modified to have that third position. There's really only one thing separating it from having that third position, which is an incomplete receiver. And then after that, you just put in an auto sear, and then it has that position in it, and it can go fully automatic. But most likely what I'll say is you trained on an AR-15, not an M16.
Seconds. There's a skill not a lot of girls have, but I can do it. And shooting I loved it so much because it made me feel so small. And I mean this in a good way. The way like you look up at the night sky and you look through a telescope and you're like, whoa. I am just like a speck of dust. Looking out over the ocean, you feel that. Standing next to this is the destroyer of worlds. This is not something you just swing around, you throw it over your arm.
Exactly, so don't carry two in one hand.
Boo, 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 boo. There was an extreme amount of respect that came with operating that weapon, and that was...
Oh, of course, you learn that with any firearm. That's why most people start out with 22s to get that basic understanding of this is a weapon and it can hurt somebody very badly. Which is why I don't think we should instantly have people training on AR-15s and M16s, which use the 5.56 NATO cartridge, whereas you could be using something like a Marlin or a Ruger 1022, which use the far, far less dangerous 22 long rifle.
Was drilled into us in ROTC, and that I've carried that respect throughout my relationship with weaponry. And it was good for me to feel like, whoa, okay, I'm operating something that if you don't know how to use a gun, don't carry a gun. You're going to shoot yourself in the balls.
Yeah, that's probably an accurate assessment.
That's training. So it happens. Little things like that. So that was always my attitude towards guns. I treat them extremely carefully, extremely judiciously. They have their lockbox. They have their little place. It's not just like, I'm not like Yosemite Sam, like whipping them out at a party. We don't.
There's nobody like that.
Don't do that. But they are loaded in my house, because
I actually wouldn't keep them loaded, me personally, but some people do, and I respect that.
I have them for personal protection. I had a security issue recently. Someone in my life became what I believed was a bit unhinged, and I didn't know.
Considering what she does on her YouTube channel, I'm not surprised. You're kind of asking for that lady.
Know how deep that was going to go. I didn't know how that was going to play out, and I sure as shit wasn't going to risk my safety to find out,
This is where the fun begins.
However, like I said at the beginning of this video, I am a Democrat.
Here we go. Now we're getting into the part that I'm really going to have fun with.
And I am a Democrat for 3 reasons.
Time to debunk 3 reasons.
3 reasons that no matter who a Republican candidate might be, if they are anointed by God and the Pope himself, herself is God, Pope himself,
Oh dear God.
I still wouldn't vote Republican. The environment, because
Oh dear Lord. I'm so over leftists complaining about the environment. Climate change isn't real, and if there is any impact that humans have on the environment, it is negligible at best, and there is plenty of actual scientific data to prove this.
fuck people, right? Abortion access.
Okay, no. I am pro-life to death. If you're pro-choice, that's murder. That is murder. Okay, there is plenty of science and studies to show that an unborn baby is still a child. It is still a human, and it can feel pain. Okay, and it is alive. Okay, so that is murder to kill that person, and it is a person.
And gun control.
Now here's the meat of things.
These are the reasons I am a Democrat. These are the reasons I will be a Democrat forever. I vote.
That is highly unfortunate because even if the other 2 cases prevent you from being a Republican, the gun control should not.
Not just to protect my own interests, but I vote to help people who don't have as much of a voice, who don't have wealth, who don't have an education, who are perhaps...
Yeah, there's such a thing as Khan Academy. It's pretty darn easy to get an education.
Newer to this country generationally. I vote
newer to this country generationally. You mean immigrants? Because I certainly hope you're not talking about illegals, because they're not wanted here until they go through the proper steps to become a United States citizen or at least get a visa.
To help them. I can always afford an abortion. I can fly to France and get one if...
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's murder. You shouldn't have a gun if you want abortion.
If I need to. I can live...
And I'm serious about that. If you are willing to murder your own child, you should not be trusted with a firearm which is capable of killing other adults. Okay? That's just psychotic. You should not be arming people who are willing to kill an unborn person, a person who is literally defenseless in every possible way and completely dependent on their mother for survival. If you are willing to kill that person, if you are willing to kill the most basic and innocent form of life on this planet, then you should not be trusted with the means to go and possibly hurt other people, because you will not only use it at some point, you will use it in a massively destructive way.
Someplace where the environment is beautiful and perfect. I'm lucky like that. I can have other security measures besides guns. I don't have kids.
Which I strongly encourage you to have, rather than just waving a gun around.
In school. I don't even like work in an office that people are going to shoot up. I'm kind of on my own. Not everyone is that lucky, so I vote to help them.
And a lot of those people vote red, I hate to tell you.
So, Shallon.
So you don't work in that environment, and yet you vote to help people who you've probably never met. I'm just assuming that, by the way. You can come on my channel and accost me for that if I'm assuming incorrectly.
Wait a minute. You are in favor of gun control, but you own gun? How? What? I don't believe, and this is based on my experience in ROTC.
So I just want to make the point right now that I'm already against her having guns for the sole purpose that she supports abortion.
I don't believe any private citizen should have a gun. Police and the military. That's it. Those are the only...
Okay, so not only do you support massive gun control while having guns yourself, but you basically support banning guns while having guns yourself. Do you realize that that would mean either giving up your guns or having the ATF come and kick down your door and take them by force, and probably also shooting your dog while they're at it? because the ATF does that.
Only people who need guns. When we are personally armed, it dilutes the power of the military and the police. It does.
Yes, it does, and there's a reason for that. Because if you ever get a police state like Germany in World War II or China right now, like I said before, in the case of a tyrannical government, which is far more likely to occur when people are not armed and the government does not fear them, the people have very little means of fighting back. There is a purpose for firearms, which is civil defense, and that's not necessarily going and shooting up law enforcement or shooting up the military. I think Biden just said today, you can't defeat the military with just guns, and that's probably true. Nevertheless, it's a deterrent. That's why we have them. Why did we have nukes during the Cold War? Mad, mutually assured destruction. If we fired nukes, the Russians would destroy us. If they fire nukes, we'd destroy them. We'd destroy each other. Nobody would win. That's the point of having guns. Mad, mutually assured destruction. If the government comes and tries to take us down for having guns, tries to seize our guns, mad. We get killed, they get killed. Nobody wants that. Mad. If we try and overthrow the government, they have guns too. They can take us down. We die, they die. Mutually assured destruction. Nobody wants a mad scenario. That's why we have them. It's mad, so that no side can gain power without at least the fear of being destroyed.
But you are allowed to have guns. I don't.
Yes, because the founding fathers understood the concept of mutually assured destruction. It's a check and balance system that they put on the government very wisely. Okay?
Believe like 80% of people who have kids should be allowed to have kids, but yet they are.
Okay, so she's for eugenics as well.
Right? I don't believe everyone who wants a dog is qualified to to have a dog, or
Well, we saw that with the vegan teacher lady, so that I do agree with.
even a fucking guinea pig, right? But they do.
I wish I could bleep out words on this channel, but I don't have the software to do that, so I apologize for her language.
But like I said, I'm in favor of gun control. Everything that's gone on in the past, I mean, I was going to say 2 weeks,
Also, I'm going to say right now, you realize that the two biggest groups of people who acquired guns, new guns, over the pandemic were black people and women? So you'd actually be hurting those groups that you claim to be fighting for.
We all know that.
And since you're a leftist, I'm going to assume you're on board with the whole Black Lives Matter movement, and in that case, you believe in the police brutality. So why would you want the police to continue being armed so heavily when black people can't fight back against them? I'm using your own logic here. I hope that there's no shootouts between black people and police, but in the event that there is, and the black people are innocent and the cops are shooting at them, wouldn't you want the black people to have the means to defend themselves? I'm just throwing this out here. I'm using your logic.
Gun violence has gone on beyond that, beyond the
Okay, the gun violence is in blue cities. There is very little in red cities, and the little there is in red cities is almost entirely in self-defense against an active shooter or an active burglar, a criminal of some kind, or with cops exchanging gunfire with criminals who illegally got their guns in the first place.
massage parlors in Atlanta, beyond the grocery store.
Oh my gosh, don't even bring those up. That looks so bad for your party.
Or in Colorado. This has been going on for decades, and it's
Atlanta and Boulder, Colorado, both blue areas.
Disgusting, because it's always these bitch ass beta male white.
I'm not even going to bother debunking that one.
And the reason I'm in favor of gun control is because I know that whatever restrictions might happen, whatever hoops the government might make somebody jump through to get a gun, I can pass them.
Yeah, you say that now, okay? But you have an AR. What if David Chipman gets nominated and he gets through and he bans all rifles in the United States that can take a magazine, a detachable magazine of over 22 caliber. Okay, you're screwed, and they will cost you for that. Don't think you can just go and hand your gun in and like they'll be all nice and rosy about it. No, they will kick your door down and they will take the gun because they are Democrats. They do that. They have done it in the past. Okay, and then if you jump through all the hoops, you're not only on a registry, okay? So if there is a mass confiscation of weapons, which in the event of a government this tyrannical, you would most certainly see, as with what happened in Germany before Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass, where Hitler went around and it was the first wave of the attacks on Jews, in which almost all of their firearms were seized because they didn't give up firearms when the rest of Germany did. Hitler went and he created the term machine gun or assault rifle to characterize machine guns, and that was his way of getting weapons like the MP-34 out of the hands of the Germans because it was a threat to the Nazis and the Gestapo, who could be okay. Imagine having a stick-fed machine gun shooting back at you while you're shooting back at them with the same weapon. It's not good for your own guys. So you get the guns out of the hands of the people, so it makes it easier for the Nazis to go and oppress them all. You see where I'm going with this? Again, guns have a specific purpose in MAD, in civil defense. This is what you're not getting here.
Pass it. Criminal background check? Fine.
I despise the idea of background checks. I don't want to argue against them because everybody has some really good reasons why they're there, but historically they have always led to more gun control, and that's why I detest them.
Psychological test? Okay.
Psychological test? What do you even mean by that? Shouldn't a background test or check already determine if you're mentally ill or shouldn't have a gun?
Terrorist watch list? No sweat.
That would be part of a background check.
High taxes, they're expensive? I got it.
Yeah, like I said, if the taxes are high, that's already going to annihilate most of the guns.
I'm not afraid of any sort of regulation because
you should be, because there's only going to be more that they put on until it's impossible to get a gun. And I don't think that's what you realize. In here in California, it's next to impossible to get a gun. It is possible, but you have to jump through so many hoops, and then buying ammo is even more ridiculously complicated and expensive. It's nuts. Okay, it's almost not worth getting a gun because you're going to blow through so much money and time just with all of the crazy stuff you have to do beforehand that it's not even worth owning the thing. And if you have a legitimate security threat, they're probably going to strike before you can get your hands on the weapon because it takes so much time. California just instituted a new law where any centerfire rifles or pistols, you can only buy one within a 30-day period. So say you buy an AR in California, which is already ridiculously hard, and there's a bunch of restrictions that go with it. If you manage to get an AR, and then you want to have that, say, under your bed, but you also want to have one above your fridge, just in case. Let's say your fridge is next to an area you think somebody might try and attack. Well, you have to wait another month before you even start the process of getting that other gun, giving your attacker more time to use that security threat to breach your house, to breach the area you're staying in, and attack you. And then you only have the one area to defend yourself in where you have that other AR. So you see how this works? You see how this just goes downhill? That fear you felt, you're bringing it to more states. This is a slippery slope. This is a downhill slope.
I know what kind of person I am. I'm sane.
You might be an outstanding person. I'm sure you are. Although I detest the fact that you want eugenics and abortion because that's sick and evil. You might, other than that, be an outstanding person. You probably are. It doesn't change the fact that the government doesn't care, especially nowadays.
I'm safe, I'm judicious, I'm healthy.
They don't want you to have guns. They're the government. They want more power. It's just how things work. And you're giving them
I'm wealthy.
the means to go and take guns. It comes down to that. It doesn't matter what your status is. You're just going to screw yourself in the long term and screw everyone else that you claim to be helping, because you admit that you're luckier than most people, that you claim to be helping out the little guy. Well, you're making it harder for the little guy to also do the same thing as you and jump through all these hoops and get all of these things done. Say it's ridiculously expensive. Say there's a bunch of background checks. Say there's this, that, and this. You've just made it exponentially harder for the people that you say you're trying to help to get guns, to defend themselves.
So,
especially when it comes to finances, you claim that you're wealthy and much more successful than a lot of people, and that you claim to be helping those other people who aren't that successful. But if those other people want to get guns, well, you've just screwed them over with your vote, because now you've made it financially more difficult to get the firearms.
bring it on. So the people who are like, oh, you can't take it away from the mentally ill.
If we did background checks right, which we really don't do right now, the mentally ill wouldn't have them in the first place. And by the way, the places where we're not doing background checks correctly, blue states.
Are you mentally ill? Are you the next shooter? Don't.
Oh, and then that's the card they love to bring up when you have a good point, they call you the next shooter. That's a cop-out, lady.
Raise the taxes on them. I'm gonna have to pay $300 for these guns?
Yeah, it's the best way to do gun control. I mean, if you did that, I'd have my own problems with it, but at least it would be a respectable way of doing it. But the thing is, the Democrats almost never do it.
Yeah, dude.
Because they don't actually want effective gun control. They just want fear, and that gives them votes, which is what you're not realizing, which makes you the class of liberal I like to call the useful idiots. And I know I said I'd refrain from the insults, but I have to make this point. You're being used, lady. People like you are being used to instill that same sense of fear that you felt in New York. And then once Democrats have that, then they can just get more and more and more power through saying they're going to do all this and that, all background checks and taxes and this and that on guns, which they never do. And then the problem gets worse. And then people like you keep believing they're going to get better and keep believing that the politicians are the answer. And then you keep voting for them, and the problem only gets worse. It only compounds. This is what has been happening in the blue cities for literally 50 years on end.
Dude, maybe so. Maybe guns are now a thing that only rich people get to have.
That is a retarded idea. Utterly.
We're
So you admit to not wanting to help the little guy then?
talking about like the right versus the entitlement.
Oh dear lord, this is going downhill really fast. I don't know how much of this video I'm going to keep watching. It's kind of moving slowly, and she's bringing up a lot of dumb points, which countless people have debunked countless times. But I'm just going to skim through the rest of the video, and then if I hear something that's decent and worth debunking, I'm going to debunk that. But otherwise, let's try and speed the video up.
You have the right to bear arms in America. You know, I wish.
Yeah, but you're making it exponentially difficult in something that only the rich have access to. Is it only the rich get access to the rights? Is it only the rich who get access to a certain right in America? How's that very fair? I thought America was founded to be a place where people of all different ages, all different classes, all different backgrounds, all different races can come and be one same thing, can all have the same rights. But you're saying that only the rich now get to enjoy the Second Amendment? That's stupid. I mean, isn't that immediately setting up a power discrepancy? Isn't that immediately setting up a instance where all rights aren't enjoyed by all people? Again, I'm just using your logic here.
I could take that out of the Constitution. Sorry, my lash is like making me crazy.
Oh yeah, and then attacking the Constitution again. Sorry, lady, it's here to stay.
But we can't. I mean, I don't know. I feel like we could. We could just exit out. Whatever.
Nope, not happening.
You
There would actually be a civil war before you could do that, and you would lose.
have the right to a gun. You're not entitled to have a gun.
Yes, you are. It's written on our founding document. It is your right. And you're saying that only the rich can enjoy it.
Have the right to own a private jet. I mean, there's no law against it, but I don't feel like I just get to have one. Well, where the fuck is my private jet?
Again, I'm sorry about the language, guys.
What do you mean they cost $30 million? You're just
A private jet is not comparable to a firearm. They serve very, very different purposes. And again, you're saying that only the rich should own firearms.
gonna charge me a lot of money for it. Like, well, what's up, bro? Come on. Oh, so drunk. And I think the reason, I'm sorry, this is making me, it's like poking into my eye. I think the reason we don't have gun violence is because everyone assumes everyone else is armed. Like,
we do have gun violence in your cities. We have rampant gun violence. You just talked about Atlanta and Boulder. Again, 2 mass shooters carried out in your cities. Okay? We do have rampant gun violence. You just admitted it. And it's only in your areas. And you wonder why that is, because your ideas aren't working.
you're not going to draw on someone at Winco at the grocery store because you know they're going to draw on you.
That actually did happen. A guy walked into a convenience store, I think it was in Texas, and he drew a gun on the cashier. The cashier drew his gun, and every other customer in the store drew their guns. There was an exchange of gunfire, and that guy with that robber went down, and nobody else got hit. It was a meme headline. I saw it on the Discord a couple months back. I remember showing my friends at school, and I was just like, man, you don't mess with Texas. I think it was in Texas. But anyways, yeah, that's the point. You don't draw on people in public because there's the fear that other people will keep you in check. MAD, mutually assured destruction. It's a counter check. It's a counterbalance. It's a check and balance on the system, on each other, on society. That's why we have them. Civil defense. It's not for going out and shooting everything. It's for the threat of going out and shooting everything that keeps people peaceful.
Montana is an open carry state, which means
Thank God.
you cannot put your gun in a concealed, you can't carry it in your purse. You can have it in your car concealed, but if you're like out and about, people have to be able to see it. You have to wear it on a holster like it's the law.
Okay. So Montana does have legalized open carry, which I wish we had everywhere else. But concealed carry should also be an option, and that's partially what Texas is doing right now. So you should have the option to open carry or conceal carry, which is, I think, what Montana's trying to go for right now. But being an open carry thing is actually really good, guys. Believe it or not, the left has gone after that multiple times. So don't think it's a bad thing. Think of it as a step in the right direction.
Wild West, because it is. You can.
Wild West might be over dramatizing it a little bit, but it's somewhat of an okay explanation or example. Where everybody is armed, there is the threat that if one person pulls a gun, everybody pulls their gun, so nobody pulls their gun because they don't want everybody pulling their gun.
Carry an AR into Walmart, but that's the thing, you have to carry it. People have to know that you're armed. If you want to conceal it, and I know that this seems kind of backwards, a lot of gun laws are, they don't make a lot of sense to me.
That's true, and that's mostly due to the ATF. They're the kings of confusing. Which they like, because then they get to arrest people when they're confused and they don't correctly follow the law. Again, corrupt government.
If you want to conceal it, you have to go through a very rigorous training course. You have to get a concealed carry permit,
That's pretty standard in most states. Other than California and New York, it's basically impossible to get them there without bribing the sheriff's office. There's plenty of people who will talk about that on the internet, but I don't have time for it right now.
And it's not like a emotional support animal permit. They're like, boop. No, it's a whole thing. It's a whole fucking thing. And you have to pass.
Yeah, and you should go through the whole thing because then you get the training.
All these other courses before you can even qualify.
And if people wanted to do away with that, then again, I raise the point of the training in the school, make it part of your education. Okay, that's a pretty good substitute, I think, and you still get the training.
For the density, people aren't up in each other's business. We're a libertarian state, and not even in terms of voting.
Well, it's a conservative leaning libertarian state.
Votes Republican. Relax, Cooley. It was the most awful thing. Oh my God. But I called my boyfriend at the time. I was like beside myself. I was hysterical. And he's like, I'm sending my friends down there to get the deer, the dead deer, because they're going to eat it. And I was like, what? And
yeah, because people hunt. People hunted to survive once. People still do it. It's an effective means of saving yourself some money. And I'm sorry, lady, it is good to keep the deer population in check. Because aside from natural predators, if we weren't part of the food chain, if we just removed ourselves from the food chain, then we would have a lot more deer than we needed. Suddenly there's a lot more deer than we need. Now there's a lot more bobcats and mountain lions than we need. And there's a lot less grass than we need. There's a lot less forest than we need. There's less foliage than we need. And then you've suddenly thrown the ecosystem out of whack. So I'm sorry, lady, but humanity is just integrated in we've integrated ourselves into the food chain now, into the ecosystem. We're part of the ecosystem now. And to remove ourselves would be to go against what you say. You're an environmentalist. To remove ourselves from the food chain, well, that does more harm to the ecosystem than staying in it.
And he's like, it's a circle of life. Like, its life has meaning. It's not.
Exactly. There is an ecosystem. We are part of the ecosystem. We can't just simply remove ourselves. That's a bad idea.
Going to waste. But that's how it is.
I don't understand how these leftists can't make these connections. It's like somebody's turned off their brain.
You hit or you can bow hunt. You can bow hunt. We're not talking like,
yeah, crossbows.
Like, old school. It's like these huge.
Although compound bows exist, you can still do that.
Bows, because compression bows. I can't even pull one. My ex-boyfriend had one. I'm like, no, I'm my nails.
Crossbows are an effective alternative. You can get them you can get them at the Bass Pro Shop.
So I feel like my everyone else to have access to them. It should be something kind of, I don't know, man. So I just feel like if you really do love guns, and if you love your right to guns, then you shouldn't want everyone else to have access to them. It should.
Oh, you absolutely should want everybody else to have access to them, so that you all enjoy the right equally together, and that you also have that element of civil defense and MAD in play. Because if you just have one select group of people who owns guns and nobody else can, well, then you've created a hierarchy and MAD doesn't apply anymore. And suddenly that group of people can just do whatever the hell they want to the rest of everybody. I'm sorry, lady, but it's basic human nature, and you can't negate that. So I think the rest of her video is just talking about some other life advice and like dating tips. So I think that's where we're going to cap the video. So thank you so much to Libertas and the United States Enclave for telling me about this video and linking it to me. I've gotten some really good content out of it. So again, you guys, he needs 4 more subs. Hit him up. If 4 of you guys can go and subscribe, I will be eternally grateful. Get him to 400. Tomorrow's 4th of July. Let's do this. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all later. Stay armed, most importantly, Patriots, and stay safe.
Well, that was idiotic. Off to hang myself. Off and left.